We'll now move on to the first session of the day, a panel discussion on shipping industry building for the future. We have an eminent panel to include Mrs. H.K. Joshi, CMD Shipping Corporation of India, Dr. Suresh Bharadwaj, Resident Director and Principal, MASA Maritime Academy, Chennai, Captain S.K. Patnaik, CEO and Director, International Shipping and Logistics, FTSE Dubai. The session will be moderated by Mr. Jagmeet Singh Makkar, IMEI Chair, India Maritime University, Chairman HK Branch, Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers. A brief introduction to Mr. Jagmeet Makkar. He's the IMEI Chair at the Indian Maritime University and a shipping expert with extensive knowledge and experience. Mr. Jagmeet contributes to the maritime industry as an expert witness, practicing arbitrator, consultant, and an educator. He's on the panel of a number of arbitration institutions. He's the chairman of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers, Hong Kong branch, chairman of the Logistics and Maritime Arbitration Committee of HKCICA, board member of Global Met Vista Hong Kong, and ambassador Asia of Baltic Expert Witness Association of the Baltic Exchange. A regular speaker at international events, he has contributed to a number of publications. Over to you, Mr. Makkar.
Thank you very much, Padmaji, and it's such a pleasure to be here and introducing the panelists, the most eminent panelists that I have on my panel today. First of all, regarding the panel as well as the topics that we have, it's going to be in two threads. The first thread would be about technological and regulatory developments, market uncertainties and their resulting opportunities and challenges for the industry stakeholders, as well as other disruptive changes such as in digitalization across the broader industry. Our esteemed panelists will also present their perspectives on the importance of our seafarers and how crucial it is to sustain interest in the seafaring career to keep the wheels of supply chain turning. They may consider how will the future ship look like, and also the impact on the global trade as we expect it to be from the reduced transportation of fossil fuels. Before we do that, let me very quickly introduce our esteemed panelists to you. Mrs. H.K. Joshi, Chairperson and Managing Director of Shipping Corporation of India, has close to 4 decades of corporate experience and 7 years of broad board level experience. She is the chairperson of 3 other companies and the managing director of Indian Ports Global Limited, in addition to being on the board of 8 other companies, while also being on various board committees. Mrs. Joshi also holds additional charge of Director Finance in the Shipping Corporation of India. Harjeet ji is a finance professional with a passion for management, and her eye for excellence and business acumen demonstrated in her leadership won her various laurels, recognitions, and awards. Thank you, ma'am, for taking time out to join this panel. Dr. Suresh Bharadwaj is the Resident Director and Principal at the MASA Maritime Academy, Chennai. He has 40 years of work experience, which includes 5 years as master of various types of ships, and then 25 years of multidisciplinary shore experience in senior and top management positions spanning in the maritime industry verticals of commercial, operations, consultancy, academia, and research. We are delighted to have you with us, Suresh. Captain S.R. Patnaik is the Chief Executive Officer and Director at International Shipping and Logistics, FZE Dubai. He is a master mariner with 16 years of sailing experience on various types of ships, namely bulk carriers, tankers, and container ships. Captain Patnaik has a rich commercial and operating experience in shore-based shipping for more than 17 years, making it a total of 33 years plus in the shipping industry. Captain Patnaik is an active contributor to various marine and logistics seminars and conferences. He has been speaker at several seminars wherein he has shared his vast knowledge with the maritime and logistics industry on various related topics. Thank you very much, Soumya, for joining us here. Now, we are going to commence this session today with individual presentations from each of the panelists, followed by an interesting discussion on some of the burning topics. So may I request Mrs. H.K. Joshi, Harjeet ji, to kindly take the lead, followed by Dr. Suresh Bhardwaj and Captain S.R. Patnaik. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jagmeet ji, for that wonderful introduction. And it's always a pleasure to be on the panel where you are also there. And I would like to first start by thanking both Informa Markets as well as INMEX for not cancelling the event, even though it was supposed to be done virtually, but they've at very short notice doing it virtually, unlike other events which are getting cancelled or postponed. So thank you all the illuminaries who've spoken, Sanjay Bhatia ji, Madam Malini Shankar ji, our ex-CMD Mr. Hazra ji, and all the other co-panelists, as well as the esteemed audience that we have today. A very warm good morning to you. I'd like to start with my presentation. I'll just take a few minutes to share the screen. So once my presentation comes on, so I'm sure I consider everybody can see the screen. So
Yes, madam.
The opening slide itself is something which I'd like to dwell on for some time. Given the topic shipping industry, building for the future, on my cover slide, the dynamic image on the left top corner depicts the dynamic state of shipping with several strong forces acting simultaneously in unison, albeit in different directions, explosively from several sides on innumerable variables which seemingly are random but actually interrelated and are bounded by the invisible shipping ecosystem. The extreme volatilities in the freight markets that we've been seeing recently, the tectonic shifts in the commodity trades, the emerging business models, and the technologies I consider are the disruptive forces which are shaping the future of shipping, and we are riding high on the wave of sustainability, which is remolding the complete landscape of shipping on several fronts. And more importantly, all this is happening at the same time. So this is what I was trying to depict in my cover slide. We move on to the major waves in the ocean of shipping industry. And here I would like to point that I see a sea of dynamic variables which are shaping the future of shipping. Four major trends which distinctly come out are decarbonization, technology, emerging business models, and structural disruptions. I briefly touch on the decarbonization and the way it is going to mold shipping. Now, just by looking at the ships which I have tried to depict over here over the course of the maritime history, that itself tells us a lot about the way shipping has been changing. The first picture is of the oldest known boat called as Bessie Cano, which is estimated to be about at least 10,000 years old. From that to today's vessels, we have come a long way and the journey continues. I'd like to share with you the reef knot, which is actually like a double impact of decarbonization on shipping. It is not just ships which are changing. And the reef knot, which is also known as sailor's knot, illustrates the double impact of decarbonization on shipping. For the shipping industry, the transition is not about vessels emitting less CO2 while transporting cargo. It is first and foremost also about changing the tectonic plates underlying the global economy and the change in shipping trade patterns of major commodities, which is going to be a significant impact of decarbonization on future shipping, for which, of course, the industry is now bracing. These ambitions could reverse the demand outlooks for the entire vessel segments. Think along the lines of renewable energy working to substitute oil, coal, gas towards 2030 and 2050. Well, this could be the future shipping, and this is clearly not going to happen overnight, but there are going to be dramatic changes which we need to start preparing for. Now, coming to the technology wave in shipping, there is a ubiquitous technology which is overpowering every aspect of shipping, and technology has become a critical component of shipping in modern times. In addition to ships and seafarers, we see a cog on that side where we can see that both seafarers as well as ships are going to be moving around technology, and both of them are going to be significantly impacted with technology and will need to be keeping themselves abreast and updated with the impact of technology. I move on to share with you what would be required to successfully navigate the technological wave, considering the constraint of time. I'll not go through each points. I would only like to summarize and state here that there are things which would need to be done at the organizational level, and there would be a lot of things which would need to be done in a collaborative effort at the industry level. Now, what is going to be the wave of emerging business models in shipping, considering that we are talking about future shipping? So we've already seen that there is an increased shift from port to integrated door-to-door multimodal logistics. We've seen that there is an emergence of multimodal logistics, which is leading to emerging business models where shipping companies are no longer doing only core shipping business. They are now investing in a lot of other multifarious activities to become a complete door-to-door logistic provider. So this we consider is going to get further strengthened considering the future of shipping. Now, what is the structural disruption which is going to be happening? The mask at the front of the shipping is just to indicate what follows now in the future slides. It is the disruption of the pandemic. And as we see that the pandemic did play havoc, but it was to the good fortunes of shipping. And we've always seen that somehow shipping always loves a crisis, even though this is not something which we would wish, and we would very soon want the globe to be free of the pandemic. But every time there has been a disruption, it has actually led to the building of fortunes in shipping, and this pandemic has been no different. We can see in the next slide that how the pandemic has impacted the charter rates for the containers, which we've seen have almost gone multifold. It's something which has not happened in the history of container segment. We've also seen the bulk rebounding, but of course the tanker has suffered dramatically in the pandemic because of the increased crude oil prices, which is now at $87 a barrel, and I don't know where it is going to head. So that is going to hit the fortunes of the tanker owners. Now, going to the future of shipping, we'll have to brace for disruptions. That is very, very clear. And these different type of disasters which have been happening, of course, nothing is predictable. And that is something which we've seen all along in shipping. You can never predict what shipping is going to be like. So one needs to just ensure that you are very agile and adept to be able to adjust to what the future brings in. And there are going to be disruptions considering what. However, I'd like to end on a more positive note, saying that there is a lot of positivity with respect to the maritime sector. And it is clear that over the long term, the governments and the central banks across the world will always ensure growth. Right bottommost figure gives the forecasted global growth. At the same time, the top figure illustrates how maritime trade and global growth are strongly correlated. This means even maritime trade is bound to grow in the long term along with the global growth. I think there is no option on that. I would like to stress on the importance of seafarers at the core of shipping's future. We need to accept that truly the seafarers are the key workers and they are the frontline workers as far as shipping. And without them, no matter how much of technology may come in, we may be talking about autonomous ships, but seafarers would remain at the core of shipping. Of course, there would be a lot of changes which will be required in the skill sets of the seafarers to ensure a good future in shipping. I would like to now summarize by listing out that there are various points with respect to the future of shipping. Just two quotes would sum it up very nicely. The one quote which is from that prediction is very difficult, which I've just said, especially about the future, and that holds very, very true from for shipping from Robert Storm. And of course, this other one from Charles Darwin, which says that it is not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. And I think that is what is the message for future shipping. With that, over to my next panelist. I close my, and thank you INMEX for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Joshi.
Yes, Dr. Bhardwaj, you can start. Thank you so much, Mrs. Joshi. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, checking 1, 2, 3. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Dr. Bhardwaj can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. Good. I must thank you, Jagmeet, and I must thank Dr. Joshi, Mrs. Joshi for ending on that note that at the core lies the seafarer. And that's what my presentation is really about. Because as you mentioned, Madam Joshi, the future of shipping is heading towards, number one, a digitally smart shipping industry, and number two, a carbon neutral industry. Now, this process is actually transformational. It is not just transitioning. We must not forget the ship which is there remotely in the vast oceans, holding the perils of the sea. That's the term, yeah? Perils of the sea. It is defined as a safety critical industry. So, are there proper risk management systems in place to ensure resilience? Is the safety being compromised? Well, early science says so. And this is the sum and substance of my presentation. What is digitalization doing at the end of the day? It is catalyzing a wider use of data, data-driven models, remote services of shipping. They are all leading to improvements in efficiency and productivity, sure. At the same time, industry is trying to find pathways towards decarbonization. And in many of these, the digitalization is also enabling this innovation. So the new risk picture is certainly more complex. And this is something which we need to make it more explicit. Yes, we focus on technology, sure, that is central, but insufficient in isolation. The success of this transformation, if I may say, depends on people who are at the sharp end of the business, the seafarers who perform and who deliver. The system is really a set. It's a set of human, organizational, and technical elements that together achieve things. Now, we must appreciate that while digitalization replaces a lot of manual tasks, it also creates a distance between the person and the operation. And when it comes to interconnected software, algorithms, they are susceptible to interruptions, not to talk about the lack of human-machine interface. Furthermore, the systems are more complex with newer failure mode. It results into more complex interactions. Also, the maritime industry, as we know, it is using a number of industrial platforms with a very limited standardized interface, lack of standardization. The responsibility for integrated systems is also spread across many interests, whether it is the vendors and the suppliers. So what is happening? The holistic risk becomes a major struggle when we have to manage, the design, the construction, operation, maintenance of a typically software controlled vessels. Safety regulations, they lag behind. They lag very much behind this accelerating digital developments. So what should be done, you may ask? Well, we need verifications, and these verification methods should be based on a systemic perspective of safety. Are we capable? Do we have this HMI knowledge to do this particular verification? Matter of fact, a close collaboration through the entire life cycle is what is needed. This assessment, safety assessment, should be evidenced. Yes, simulations is one good way, but another very good way is the digital twins, because it updates dynamically the operational parameters. What about safety concerns in decarbonization and desulfurization? Well, most of these are relying on technology, so they have the same issues which we discussed already. Not to forget the traditional non-technical controls like risk competence, safety culture. They are as relevant in design and equipment of these materials for handling alternative fuels. And here again, a systemic perspective focusing on this complex interaction between human, organizational, technical factors is needed. What we really need is a system integrator, a kind of a spider in the web, who will have a holistic picture through design, development, implementation, keeping a bird's eye view. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, number one, digital transformation calls for system integration. Number two, transformation to carbon neutral shipping. Stakeholders, there are many stakeholders who need to collaborate to increase the transparency, create a culture of continuous learning. And most important, in both these advancements, this should be complemented with efforts to keep the people in the loop, so that the innovative technology, which is designed, maintained, and operated by optimally performing people and organizations that embrace holistic risk management, That is what is going to put this industry in the best position to transform itself through digitalization and through decarbonization. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Very much, Dr. Bhardwaj. A very fresh, very interesting perspective. It's all about people, and the human-machine interface, I think, is extremely important. I think both the presentations have gelled in so very well in terms of the enabler and what needs to be done earlier that Mr. Joshi brought in. So let's look at from strictly commercial perspective, the people who are running the ships on the water. Of course, Mrs. Joshi does the same, but Captain can we have you please with your presentation?
Yeah, Jagmeet, good morning, and good morning to all of you. I am really delighted to be part of this session and share my thoughts. I'll pick up from what Mrs. Joshi and Dr. Bhardwaj have highlighted on, but I will speak and I will highlight on two main subjects which are quite burning and quite important. One is the challenges faced by seafarers, and the second one is the market volatility and how to navigate in the shipping industry. These are two very important subjects, and since I represent a ship owning and a ship operating company, so I see both sides of it, and I see what the challenges we are currently facing and we are going to face in the future. So coming back to seafarers, so as you know, seafarers are crucial as they keep the global supply chain running, moving essential commodities across the globe. And you have seen during the pandemic, more than 1 million seafarers on board world merchant ships worked tirelessly and dedicatedly without fearing for life, and that kept the world economy running. Hence, it is important to see that the seafarers are physically and mentally fit to carry out their work on board ships, as it is crucial for safe shipping, safe transportation of goods, and protection of maritime environment. They are the real backbone of the maritime business. After a long voyage, facing rough weather, no socializing, hard work, a seafarer eagerly waits for the vessel to call port and step ashore to refresh himself or herself. We started with the ISPS, where the free movement of people to and from ships was curtailed. Now it is the COVID-19 pandemic, and to add to it is the faster turnaround of ships in the ports. Whether it is the port or the charter, they all want the ships to complete as soon as possible and sail out. Ships can safely sail and navigate provided the man behind the helm is safe and sound. The COVID-19 pandemic has, in fact, made things worse for the crew members. We understand some 300,000 crew members are still stuck on ships, and some have completed more than 15 months on board. This is the time we, the maritime fraternity, have to be more sympathetic to seafarers. So let's understand some of the main challenges faced by seafarers. Access to proper medical care, timely sign-on, sign-off, shore leave at ports. Imagine a situation where a seafarer sailed for such a long time and is unable to step ashore to, in fact, just go and mingle around people. And that can be so critical for a seafarer for his physical and mental well-being. Then you have got the hectic port stays. Everyone wants the ship to move out faster, whether it's the charterer, the port, the ship owner. For commercial reasons, they all want the ships to always move around fast. So, and to top of that, when the ship reaches a port, you have got so many activities to do, such as store spare supplies, surveys, repairs, cargo operation, owner's visit, superintendent's visit by flag state, TSC, vetting inspector, port officials, customs, immigration, port health, and all this. Man can imagine all this have to be done in 24 hours or 36 hours time, and crew member has to deal with that. You have got ship with hardly 20 people on board, and after long sailing, they have to get through all this rigmarole. And you can imagine he'll be dead tired by the end of the day to even think of getting ashore. And to that, you don't have a chance to be ashore. Uncertainty in the carrier. Sometimes they have to join back quickly, and sometimes joining takes a long time. We have seen that in this pandemic. Some seafarers are stuck on the ships, and some seafarers are stuck ashore because they are unable to join ships. That puts a lot of mental stress on them. Training. We see there is general degradation in the quality of seafarers. Inadequate training. Certain flag state administrations issue COCs with proper education, without proper education training examination, which is quite dangerous. I don't know to name those registers, but yes, this is something that needs real attention. So IMO has already classified seafarers as a key worker. Hence, it is important for all maritime nations to come together to ensure that crew members' difficulties are addressed and attended to without further delay. So this is what I want to stress on the seafarers' challenges. Now I'll come to market volatility and how to navigate, a subject that I sort of go to my heart. And so shipping market, as my earlier panelists have said, is highly volatile market. We have seen Cape size vessels touching $200,000 per day to touching $2,000 a day. Container markets are currently the best performing sector in the shipping industry, and tanker markets are the worst performing sector. So what are the factors that lead to such volatility? So it's a supply demand imbalance, as you know, whether it's new deliveries, scrapping, congestion, demand growth. Then you have got ships are getting bigger and bigger the sizes. As you know, bigger the size, higher the volatility. So increase in ship sizes, as Dr. Joshi said, you have got container ships which are being built of 20,000 TEUs. You have got very large ore carriers, which are 400,000 deadweight plus, VLOCs, even VLCCs, all the sizes, as the sizes keeps getting bigger, the volatility also increases. So change in trade pattern and geopolitical unrest and uncertainty. This again a big thing that we are seeing now. We have seen the Australia-China trade ban, which is caused havoc to the dry cargo industry. China's trade policy, which is so erratic and so whimsical, and suddenly they decide that they will ban all imports of coal. Suddenly they decide they'll ban all exports of steel. We have seen the force majeure in Brazil, which is again a big exporter of grain. So that also causes a lot of disruption. Indonesia banning coal exports. Recently, we heard the news. Piracy in Indian Ocean. Exports ban of iron ore from India. All these factors do lead to a lot of uncertainty in the shipping market. Then we have the derivative market, which is the third force that has come into the entire dynamics of supply demand, is the derivative market and the speculation angle. We see most owners are deciding on the charter rate as to what the derivative market talks about. If the supply demand rate, as purely because supply demand, the rate is say 20,000, if derivative market says 10,000, the ship owners go for hedging and the rate comes down. So huge amount of speculation that goes around in the shipping market, and that also causes a lot of uncertainty and this volatility again. Then you have got the new regulations, which are the current sulfur emission norms, the SOx NOx, the carbon emission norm, ballast water treatment system. This will have huge bearing on the supply demand imbalance again. So wait and watch by ship owners to have a clarity in the propulsion system. So we know that there are many alternative fuels which are being talked about, whether it is the what we call bio LNG or green ammonia, green hydrogen, biofuel, wind, solar, all this. So there's no clarity as of now as to what is the best system. But as we see now, LNG and methane are supposed to be the best, which are actually, at least we have infrastructure for them to go, which are relatively better than the real zero emitting sort of fuel like bio-LNG, green ammonia, or green hydrogen. But again, there is a lot of uncertainty, and that's again holding back the ship owners to make new orders. Although the shipyards are all full till 2025 with container ships, but if they have to get free by 2025, still there is a lot of uncertainty, and we have got a target to meet by 2030 and followed by 2050. So that's going to cause a lot of uncertainty. So while new regulations are good for safety of life at sea and protection of environment, it comes with a huge cost, capital as well as recurring. And we have seen in low market, when the ship's earning potential is below its OPEX, it becomes a huge burden on the ship owners. So ships should be allowed to carry cargo comfortably till the age of 25 at least. Now you see most charters, they prefer ships less than 15, or some are even saying less than 10 in the contract. So that becomes a huge burden on the ship owners, because they'll have to ultimately depreciate the asset over a period of at least 20 years. So that's again a huge challenge. Ship owners do not get enough time to recover their investment, and most ship owners go for early scrapping in a poor market. So that's again not a very good thing. We have seen when it comes to new regulations with respect to environment protection, maritime industry always takes the lead. That's again something that becomes quite onerous on the ship owners. So it is important to have a balance between commerce and compliance to regulations, as to make it an attractive industry for investors. Ships are getting bigger. To summarize, ships are getting bigger, compliances are getting stricter, manning getting lesser, technology is improving faster, ports are getting quicker in turnaround. Entire industry, ship owner, ship manager, seafarer, cargo interest, charters, port, flag state, all have to gear up to adapt to the changing environment and adjust to the new norm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Patnaik. I think between the three speakers, we have got a fantastic overview in terms of what Mrs. Joshi mentioned about the structural changes. I like the slide in which Mrs. Joshi, you talked about agile learning. I think and later on, Dr. Bhardwaj, when he spoke, it's all about human being. It's all about that, even if machines or the data or digitalization is going to come in, it's the interface, it's the humans, again, at the center of the thing. And what Captain Patnaik mentioned, the people on board, the ones who keep the supply, wheels of supply chain turning, I think that's very important. So I would like to ask Captain Patnaik. Captain Patnaik, what are the main barriers? We all talked about what needs to be done in terms of decarbonization and disruptions and digitalization. So what are the main barriers to sustainable shipping, especially from Indian perspective? I would be very happy if you can bring some context of the Maritime India vision and what we are trying to do.
I think shipping is a global business and India is no exception, as you know. So, but the predominant barriers for sustainable shipping, if I have to put it, the first is the technological barrier, which you have just now heard from Dr. Bharadwaj. I mean, as I said in my talk, that there are no options, there are not many options which are available as we speak. I mean, we all see that LNG is the only option. Yet something it is not so good for restricting GHG, because I think the emission is about, I think, 25%. So challenges is to have the bunkering facilities. Now, if you have to decide LNG or any other mode, where do the ships bunker? And a huge investment for ship owners, whether for new building or for retrofitting. So these are the barriers on technological front. Then you got the time barrier. So time is also a constraint. To build LNG ships, it takes time. And as I said, till 2025, most shipyards are full with container ship orders, and they're not willing to take any fresh orders. And the next one is barriers related to unclear and unfair regulatory framework. So we should have uniform rules across the world. It cannot be the situation where India has a particular regulation, UK has a particular regulation, China has a particular regulation, then it will lead to unfair competition. So that's also something which needs to be taken care of. Then the contractual challenges. Now, the only alternative which is immediately there is reduction of speed and consumption. So that's again when you have to comply. Now imagine a ship which is under Indian flag or a ship which is under Chinese flag. If they have to compromise on it, and you sort of assigning a charter party with a Chinese charter, and there you sort of give a new declaration of speed and consumption, and the competing ship has a different speed and consumption in the contract. So then there is a disparity again. So you'll have these contractual challenges, and that will also lead to off-hire claims and all that from charterers. Then comes the cost. That's again another big barrier. So all these new regulations lead to additional cost, and whether you will have the industry paying back to the owners for all these extra expenses. We have seen that the ballast water treatment plant cost itself was $500,000, and after fitting that, someone who is operating low sulfur fuel oil, and there is a disparity. So industry is not sort of balanced to that kind of approach. So cost is also a huge impediment, and that also needs to be taken care, and followed by the crew training and familiarization. Crew have to also get familiarized to all the new technological advancements that are going to come in the future. So this is my take on this question.
Thank you, Captain Patnaik. Mr. Joshi, would you like to add something to that, especially where will that money come from? I want to have all those ships, and from the finance, you're a finance person, on the financial perspective.
So just adding on to what Captain Patnaik said, that added to the uncertainties, there is also a lack of awareness with respect to both the technology as well as accessibility to the options. And technology, of course, comes at a price. Like Mr. Makkar, you very rightly said, the core is the investment. And the investment which is required for transitioning to green shipping is, as it is, shipping is a very capex and a capital intensive industry. Upon that, transitioning to green shipping is going to be a massive capital intensive project for any shipping company. And for the large shipping companies, this may be possible on the strength of their balance sheets, but for the small shipping companies, it's going to be a real big challenge. So while we are all talking about sustainability, the doability is something which needs to be seen. And I think the West needs to support the developing countries on to moving on to green shipping and to moving on to sustainability. Just talking is not enough. We would need sustenance in terms of the financing, considering that this is capital intensive. Even normal shipping was not a very viable proposition. So moving on to green shipping is going to be a very challenging and daunting task.
Thank you so much. I mean, you have brought up a very interesting point that even today we are talking about level playing field, the cost of finance for us in India and insurance cost, etc. Now, if the investment is going to be in that direction where a lot of money, a lot of financing would be required, then I think every basis point is going to make quite a lot of difference. So coming to Captain Bhardwaj, regarding decarbonization, what are your views on the decarb policy of India, especially with regards to the biofuels?
Okay, yes, there is a biofuel policy for the road transportation. Is this rubbing on to the shipping? I did read about the trial which was being carried out on 2 ships on ethanol blending. It is claimed that the GHG reduction is about 7% on operationally, but on a life cycle GHG, it is huge. But we need to tread with a bit of a caution here, because when we talk of life cycle assessment, it is the entire environmental burden, not just GHG, you know. So, for example, what about water resource intensiveness of these crops? It leads to water depletion, and our country is already water stressed. What about the land usage? There is always a debate whether it is for transportation or whether it is for agriculture. The fertilizers, the plant nutrients that run off, causing eutrophication. And also there is a major survey which has been carried out, ethanol blending for marine fuels. It is posing a lot of operational issues. I mean, engines are reporting piston rings getting worn out. Ships are sailing with 2 units cut off in bad weather. I remember this was pushed onto some port, and the tugs were told to blend certain percentage. Is there a proper research in this, that after 6 months the 2 tugs come off? So yes, we are in this industry. This is a chicken and egg situation in the industry. The supply chain is not having much of faith on what is it coming next. The industry is not having enough faith on the supply chain. So credit must be given to the first users. But the point very important is, we need to have a holistic picture, not just a myopic technical view, because there are commercial issues, there are legal issues, there are, as we said, human factor issues in the operation. That's a bit of a caution which we need to take.
Just a follow-up question on that. We said all this needs to be done. There are technological issues, commercial issues, safety issues, human issues. Who is going to do it?
Human factors. First of all, we need to understand what do we mean by human factors. In this complex work environment, a man is not alone. He has interactions. These are the interactions with equipment, with systems. And when we talk about a human factors approach, we are talking about these interactions. And the man who is in the middle of it, he is the one who is actually promoting safety. He is the one who is actually promoting excellence. Given the wrong technology, the wrong systems, the worst case environmental scenario, the poor safety culture, the human being is the one who is getting it done. We should not forget that. And I must tell you, OCIMF has very recently come out with a wonderful white paper on this aspect. integrating human factors in your management systems, where every function becomes responsible for it, be it design, visit operation, visit maintenance. It is likely to come as the 14th element of TMSA. And gentlemen, ladies, this is the best pressure, not regulations. It is the customer pressure which is the best regulation, and I am glad about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhardwaj. Yeah, normally I do hear, this is a general question, anybody can answer. Normally I do hear that the regulations are not fair. Per capita emissions in India is one of the lowest compared to the top 7 or 8. Why is it that they have already done a lot of pollution in the world and now the pressure is going to be put on the rest of the parts? But this is something which is going to stay. It has been, now it is there, and we have to follow that. So I would like to ask, anyone can answer, what is it which is driving these regulations? And going forward, what do you see? These are going to get tougher and tougher, or we'll find an easier solution to that?
So I'll go first, Mr. Makkar, if that's okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So I thought ladies first, but here I thought somebody needs to take the initiative. It's not. So there is an overall growing consciousness for adoption of sustainable practices, and I think that is what is driving most governments across the world for all these regulations and for adopting plans to cut greenhouse gas emissions. But yes, I fully endorse your views that after the pollution has been done substantially, and even today, if you see the percentage of pollution which is being done by the West is much larger than what is being done by the rest of the world, and more so by the developing countries. And of course, shipping is supposed to be the least polluting of all industries. Nevertheless, the Paris Agreement is already here, and there are calls from several quarters for tougher measures. And going forward, you asked me, I think the regulatory guidelines are going to get stricter, more tougher. And the best way is for owners to proactively adapt before the hammer of the regulatory compulsion actually strikes.
Thank you very much. Just a quick follow-up question on that. You know, when we talk about decarbonization, it's the short-term impact that, you know, the CII and EXI, EEXI, etc., and then moving gradually into the alternate fuels, sustainable, zero carbon fuels, etc. So, and I think Captain Patnaik talked about slow speed, etc. How is it in your organization, this matter with regards to keeping the emissions below the levels required by 2023? How is that being done? If Captain Patnaik can start on that. How are you looking at your ships and controlling the emissions?
Yeah, no, so I think we'll have to follow the compliance part of it. And so 2 things we do. We ensure that the ships that we charter, we ensure their right ship approved up to GHG emission not exceeding D. That's something we ensure. And also we see that the right ship rating is good and the GHG rating is less than D. So that's something we ensure on the chartering front. And on the ship owning front, of course, on our charter ships, we use very low sulfur fuel oil to take care of the SOx part of it. And so the nitrogen oxide part is still yet to be done on our ships. So that's something sometime away on the tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 emission norms. But this is what we ensure, the GHG emission as well as the sulfur emission, these 2 parts. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, if it is too much technical, I would move away from that. You know, this is what happens when you make an engineer a moderator. So these are certain issues. Okay, now some of you do use third-party ship managers. Not some of you, I think only Captain Patnaik. So I'm going to come back to you, Captain Patnaik. There is inherent difference between the perspective of a ship owner and a third-party ship manager. So how have you seen the third-party ship managers looking at these regulations? Do they follow your guidance to them, Or is it something that they do because they need to maintain their own reputation? Or they are, just have to follow the regulation irrespective of anything? So what's your experience of that?
Well, it also depends upon owner to owner. And since we are a Tata Group company, so I think our compliance, our adherence to compliance is very, very strict. So we cannot sort of make any kind of leeway on that. So that's number one. So, and ship managers, they're extended arm of ship owners. It's not that they can do anything on their own. So they're doing it everything on behalf of the ship owner. So new regulations also applies to all owners, and ship managers will have to comply to it in discussion with the owners. So there's a regular dialogue that goes on between the ship managers and the ship owners. And there is a clear understanding of the budgeting part of it. And it is all agreed quite well that we have to comply. So as I said, we are very strict in compliance, because we have to also follow Tata Steel norms, Tata Group norms when it comes to compliance, and the international norms, both. So there's a dual pressure on us as a ship owner and ship operator to see that we ensure that the ship manager is in complete sync with our thought process and our strategy on managing ships for us. So that's we make no compromise on that.
Thank you so much. Anyone would like to add to that particular question? It's a general question. Anything? I know you are not having your own ship managers to look after your ships. If not, I'll move on to the next one. Now, again, this is Mr. Joshi. You wanted to add something?
I was just going to corroborate what Captain Patnaik said, that for the large corporates, the goodwill, the reputation matters a lot. So these are most likely to adopt these policies at a group level. The strategy is going to be clearly laid out. Again, for small ship managers, it may be where they may be getting pressurized, because eventually it is people, planet, and profit, and how you balance out all these three factors towards going for sustainable shipping. I think so the equation really changes from each ship manager depending upon the size, the market, as well as their own reputation and goodwill.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, one thought which has always troubled me in terms of sustainable shipping is it's a question of mindset. I'll give you an example of dry bulk ships and invite you as well as Captain Patnaik and of course Dr. Bhardwaj to contribute to that. In a dry bulk shipping, especially when you have such a fragmented market, it's dog eat dog. So if there is one cargo, there are a number of ship owners, everyone trying to undercut the other one, especially the operators, 5 cents, 10 cents. And the charterer, if he gets freight rate 5 cents less, on a not exactly like-to-like basis, I wish it was like-to-like basis, they will go and take the cheapest freight and go ahead and move ahead with that. Now, is it responsibility only of ship owners, all this decarbonization, compliance with rules? Do the charterers or the customers have nothing to do with it? Again, ladies first.
Mr. Makkar, I would say that the responsibility should be equally shared between the cargo owners as well as the ship owners. Why should it be the isolated responsibility of only the ship owners to be responsible for ensuring sustainable shipping, green shipping, and decarbonization? I think there should be norms where even the cargo owner should be held responsible, so that there is an equitable level playing field for all ship owners. And this undercutting can be then controlled.
Yeah, I agree with Mrs. Joshi. So big charters, I see they're already come out with very clear norms as to what the ships have to be when they charter. So like Tata Steel or BHP Billiton, or for that matter, other big charters, they are very clear that the ships have to be RightShip 3 or less, or they have to be GHG emission not exceeding C. So they're very clear, and they make no compromise. So and also the problem that we see, as you said, is with small traders. So they are always for this 0.5 as you said, they always want to. So, but they have no qualms about violating norms. But if you have to exclude them, the big charters are already thinking in line with what the industry wants, and they are very, very with the sort of change that is there envisaged. And if you see initiatives like Poseidon Principle and Sea Cargo Charter, that's going to bring in level playing field in the maritime sector, whether it is owner or charter or both. So I see that happening in a very rapid pace. And since we are in chartering business as well, I see that there's a big sea change in the approach of big charters. And that is going to pave the way for smaller traders also to follow these norms, because it's a question of time. Somebody has to take the lead, right? So the big charters and big owners have already started taking the lead, and that's a very positive sign. And the smaller ones will follow. So that's it.
Yeah, if I can add, the biggest change which is happening is only because of these pressures from the charterers, the responsible owners, the responsible customers. If you see, why is the tanker industry safety norms doing so well? It is thanks to the VIQs and the TMSAs and whatnot. And now, like Captain Patnaik was mentioning, the responsibilities coming to the bulk carrier sector as well through RightShip. So that is the pressure, because regulation-wise, I think that's a big joke. That regulations can be managed. Voluntary is a subject shipping industry doesn't understand. So it is the pressure of the customer, and it is the pressure of the bankers, the Poseidon principles. That is what is going to transform this industry. Sure.
Thank you so much. So it's basically mindset. It is responsible approach. It is client pull quality, and owners, good quality owners, responsible owners move forward. So that's fantastic. I think we don't have too much time left. I have only one question, and then I'm going to request my esteemed panelists for their closing statements. Now, this is a pretty important question and relates with with our country and level playing field and making ourselves stronger on the global platform. So there was a very interesting dissertation from WMU, where it talked about the future of shipping will belong to registers that can successfully balance the competing interest of industry, yet remain competitive. Hybrid registers are the future of shipping. Do you think there is room for such an approach in India that will help us grow our Indian controlled tonnage? Again, ladies first. I think you are in the best position to answer, Mrs. Joshi.
Mr. Makkar, I've got very strong views on that, considering that we've heard that earlier in the day during the inaugural session, that while we are a maritime nation, if you talk of Lothal, but now if you see, we are really dwindling as a maritime nation. And I think a lot needs to be done if we really need to add to Indian tonnage. And while we know what needs to be done, like Mr. Sanjay Bhatia pointed out, we need to see action. Considering my position, I wouldn't like to say too much at this stage.
I think that's very right, ma'am. Action is required. And once we decide on something, we need to move ahead. Captain Patnaik, what are your views looking at it from a commercial perspective? How many of your ships are Indian flagged, and how many are flagged elsewhere?
Well, I think all our ships are flagged outside, as they say, the flag of convenience. But as I said, again, in my earlier talk I gave, I said there has to be balance between commerce and compliance. And why this hybrid thing has come up. Again, you see there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of compliance that comes in with national registries. And hybrid registers basically allow ships to maintain their affiliation with the national or the traditional maritime flag while enjoying the benefits of low operating costs and lower taxes, and similar to what flag of conveniences they offer. So basically deriving best from both national register and open registers. That's how this hybrid thing has come up, and which I think is a good move forward. You try to get your ships registered, suppose it is India, I strongly urge India must do that. And if that happens, then I think a lot of ships can come back to the Indian registry and yet they'll be competitive again the way Norway offers, NIS for that matter. There again, it's a big maritime nation and they have gone for it. So there has to be some credit and some benefit. So in that case, I strongly feel that hybrid registers are the way forward, so that it creates a good balance between compliance and low operating cost for ship owners, and of course the tax benefits.
Thank you so much, Captain Patnaik. So you mean something called tricolor group, similar to what UK has, red ensign group. Hopefully one day we will see tricolor group, a group of registries. Okay, with that, thank you very much. I would like to request, starting with Captain Patnaik, to give a couple of minutes closing statement, followed by, now I'm going in reverse order. Again, Dr. Bhardwaj remains in the middle, and we'll have Mrs. Joshi giving the last word.
No, so just to sum it up, I think the key main challenges we have, one of course is we have to ensure that our seafarers are taken care well internationally. I mean, that applies to India as well, because they're really the backbone of our industry, and they have to. And I see the kind of reluctance by the people who are really wanting to join sea. And when I was sailing, we used to always feel so good to go back to sea, because we always felt that sailing was so good. But that is not there anymore. And ships are the ship staff, they're just counting the number of days when they can sign off. That's something not good for the ship, whether it's the maintenance, whether it's the upkeep, whether it is meeting with the compliance norms. If that continues like this and we don't take care as prudent owners, then I think we see definitely difficult days coming ahead. We talk of technology, we talk of anything. Ultimately, who is going to handle all that? We have to handle, our seafarers have to handle, right? And we as responsible ship owners, we have to ensure how they're comfortable on board ships. And I see them, I see the plight when I go to the ships, I see how, in what difficult conditions they are. They have no time to breathe. In the 24 hours time, the ship is in the port. They're running around helter-skelter, you know. So that's my first thing, which I think all of us put together, we can have any number of regulations coming in. IMO can come out with any number of regulations, but first take care of the seafarers. That's a big challenge I see. If you don't get good people coming on the ships and you get all riffraffs coming on the ships, to me, it's a disaster. I think that should be first taken care, number one. Number two, of course, as I said, the compliance part, we have got a lot of challenges, whether it's technology, whether it is green shipping. So I think ship owners have to carve out their strategies quite well, the investment policies, how to get attractive financing for all this. So that's the biggest challenge which I think ship owners we have now, and we'll have to deal with it. But yes, it's all for a good cause. We have to support it, but we have to find out a good way of managing it prudently and yet making ship a profitable business for us to be in. So that's my take.
Yes, Captain Patnaik. I'm carrying on from what Captain Patnaik said. He endorses human factors. Human factors need to be integrated in all operations, number one. Number two is this human machine interface. That's the key. That's the key. You know, a machine, it is a machine. You can program it, make it as powerful as you want, but a machine does not operate on its own. There is a man, there is a capability. He has his limitations on cognitive, his psychomotors. So this demand of technology has to match the capability of the person. If you know, the people who have sailed on Japanese ships, least amount of technology, lot of standardization is there. And as vis-a-vis the Chinese built ships, where there's a hell of a lot of automation, nothing works, lot more stressful. So this stress is being created by machines, and we tend to make another program for the seafarer, a psychologist. You take on one more program to become more resilient, but we are not looking at what is causing the stress. So HMI, I think we need to focus HMI and human factors right through. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhardwaj. So what I hear from you is the human beings, human mind, and from Mrs. Joshi, I heard about agile learning. So that's where IMU comes in, Indian Maritime University. So I'll leave the last word with you, Mrs. Joshi.
So I think I must not only that I would like to fall in line with my other co-panelists, but the fact remains that yes, I actually believe that the human element is the most important asset for any organization, now be it at shore or be it on the fleet. So of course, seafarers, I from the core of my heart believe are key workers. But I would like to stress on one point, which is with respect to India being a producer of seafarers, what is the quality of seafarers that we are producing? So I think attracting the right talent is one very important point, and then grooming that talent in the right manner, for which our maritime institutes and the quality of education needs to really undergo a sea change, because the challenges in shipping today are grossly different from the challenges which were there about 20 years back, which of course Dr. Bhardwaj and Captain Patnaik have already pointed out. So I think our curriculum also needs to undergo a change, where we need to ensure that we generate quality seafarers which we can give to the entire world. Because if you see the nature of incidents and the accidents which are happening, most of them are human related and avoidable. So I think even if I had the last word, I need to ensure a balance and a equitable. So I would fall in line with what my previous co-panelists said.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Captain Patnaik, Dr. Bhardwaj, Mrs. Joshi, and over to you. Back